Welcome to the enLIGHTenUP podcast. I am your host, Nicole Frolick, and I invite you to cozy up with me each week as I explore all aspects of the spiritual journey, spiritual biohacking, and expanding the mind beyond this reality. Remember that the collective awakening can start by planting one seed. So thanks for being such an amazing audience and sharing these shows with your family and friends. So without further ado, let's jump right into the episode and find out what we're discovering today. Hey everyone, welcome back to the enLIGHTenUP podcast. Really happy to have you here, and I'm pumped to be joined by two very woke truth seekers, Tyler and Aaron from Journey to Truth podcast. Aaron is a researcher and activist in the Disclosure and Awaken community, and Tyler is an experiencer, independent researcher, and passionate disclosure activist. Both men experienced their waking at the age of 25, and I'm really looking forward to diving into some deeper and perhaps raw topics today. So guys, welcome to the podcast. Good to have you here.
Yeah, thanks for having us. Yeah, thank you so much. You've been doing some great work lately, putting out your raw and reels and all that stuff. It's awesome.
Thanks, and it was really fun to be on your show. So I'm glad to kind of put you guys in the hot seat this time.
Yeah, it's always fun to be on the other end. It's less stressful.
Oh, yeah.
So you guys, you both awakened at the age of 25. How old are you guys?
33.
I think we're both 33.
Yeah.
Oh, you're both 33.
Yeah.
Okay, so like 8 years ago. Wait, that was 2012.
Yeah, so technically,
I think you were a little bit later.
I was later, but I guess around then is when my mom passed away, and it kind of started something for me, but I had no idea what an awakening was until later. But I think that was the starting point for me. Aaron, on the other hand, I think he knew, like, holy shit, what's happening in 2012.
It was like all at once.
Yeah.
Mind explosion awakening in 2012 for me.
Yeah, so Aaron, you were like a very devout Christian before your awakening. Are you still a devout Christian, or are you more?
No, in the sense of like the traditional Christian, like I all the dogmas and stuff, I don't. Basically what happened in 2012 is I started doing my own research and started, just like looking into things myself. Whereas before I just kind of believed everything I'd been taught my whole life. I grew up in church, since day one, since forever. And I started realizing like a lot of these beliefs, like hell, for example, it's not even in the Bible. It's everywhere it comes up is a mistranslation of what we think it means. And basically I realized it was an invention of the Roman Catholic Church as a fear control narrative to, keep people in line, basically. And that was kind of the first big thing that led me to like, well, what else isn't true that I've been believing? And I just kind of went from there. And then I just started like going down every like belief system or rabbit hole I possibly could until I came across like David Icke and David Wilcock, and YouTube was a big part of that because I would just see all these things pop up like Project Camelot and
back when YouTube was actually awesome and you could research and look up.
Yeah. Back when like
the algorithm actually worked.
There wasn't really any censoring at that time. And like, the algorithm was way better. So like if I watched like one David Icke video, for example, I would get all these like recommended videos of all this other stuff that I was just like, oh, what's this? And I was just fascinated. And that's how I am. I'm just a very like curious person. If I see anything I'm like, what's that about? I have to like look into it, right?
Yeah.
So I just kept going and going and going. That whole year I basically was just like, it was just like me taking in all the information I possibly could on all these different topics, and then eventually it led to like the spiritual path too. And like I got into Dolores Cannon that year as well. And
it's interesting that you said like fear was the one thing that started to turn you off of, I guess, religion. It was the same for me. It was the way they used fear to control people.
Fear, guilt, shame, all the all these like things to keep you in this like low vibrational state where you're constantly giving your power away. And then coming to the realization that like I am a part of God. God is not this separate entity that I have to worship outside of me. That it's that's the biggest thing, because like I never lost a belief in a greater power, because I kind of went agnostic for a little bit, where I'm like, I know there is a greater power. I know there is like this all isn't just a coincidence or whatever. Like whereas a lot of material reductionist like scientific people believe like the whole universe is just meaningless and random chance, right? Like I knew there was some kind of divine order to everything. I just didn't know what that meant, or like I knew there was more than what I was being taught to believe in my religion, basically.
Yeah. And what about you, Tyler? Were you like really into religion at all, or?
My family's, my mom's side of the family definitely was. Both sides of my family. So my parents like divorced like as I was born. So I grew up in two separate houses, and one was Christian, one was Catholic, and both of them went to church. We weren't like, it wasn't strict. We didn't go all the time, but it was definitely practiced at home. And it was the same type of the guilt and shame. Like my mom used that as a threat, like for a punishment, like, you're going to go to hell, or, you better she would make me like put my hand on the Bible and swear to her that I wasn't lying about something or whatever. But it was always this shaming. It made me feel like you were just always doing something wrong. No matter what, you had to worry about doing. You felt like you were going to go to hell if you did. That's just how I felt as a kid, and it just kind of made me naturally rebel and not even want to be a part of it. Not because I didn't believe in it, but I just didn't like that. I just didn't feel right about it.
Mm-hmm.
So I just kind of grew up going to church and all that stuff. But I wouldn't say I was participating. I was just more going because I had to. And then I got, as I got older, I started developing, this kind of anarchy. Like I didn't believe in anything. I was just like, I guess you can say atheist, but I was just like, I just thought it was all bullshit. And I realize now that the reason I did that is because it's easy to be a shitty person when you don't believe in anything, because there are no consequences.
And that's the other end of the spectrum.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah,
there are no consequences for what, if there are no consequences. And I'm not saying I was going around being a shitty person, but it's an easy way out, because I can do whatever I want. I don't have to worry about all this other crap,
Yeah. Well, your life becomes about just like
me,
pleasure in the moment.
And don't you think that's exactly what's wrong with the world right now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like to me, that's like the root of a lot of the issues that we're seeing of what's causing a lot of the destruction. I think for me, because I grew up very liberal, I grew up in Canada, and the liberal indoctrination in the schooling systems is pretty steep. And it was very, Canada is pretty much like a socialist country. And there was a lot of progressivism. And I remember like it was always like trying to push it a little bit more progressive. And it's not that there's anything wrong with progressiveness in its own right, but it seemed to take you further and further away from some sort of God or higher consciousness or some sort of connection within. And again, like you were saying, making it all about you and what you want, and screw everything else.
Yeah. And unfortunately, that's where I came from. And that was my life for the younger part of my adulthood, until my mother passed away, and the universe had other plans for me then. So what exactly happened for you that you didn't realize was your awakening, but was really happening when she passed? Just the experiences I was having at night, the sleep paralysis and other stuff, which I've talked about before, but it was more just experiences that I was writing off as well, eventually I couldn't write them off, but I just didn't think. When you really don't believe in anything, you don't have a reference point. And I just didn't know what it was. So I was scared of it, and I just blocked it out until you're forced to ignore it, like we all are. There's something happens to where you finally have to face whatever it is in your life that is trying to get your attention to snap you out of whatever old paradigm that you were in.
Did you think you were just like hallucinating at first?
Yeah, I really had to like stop and ask myself, like,
am I going crazy?
Did that happen last night? Yeah. And then you're afraid or embarrassed to talk about stuff because, first of all, you know, I was too cool and I was not vulnerable at all. You know, I just didn't want to, you know, my friends would make fun of me. I didn't want to, I was worried about that. Yeah, so it just kind of kept me in a shell for a long time until I just didn't have a choice anymore.
I'm curious, what do you think was the connection between your mother passing away and the sleep paralysis being initiated?
So I think it was a fracture in my aura. Whenever that happens, whenever you become extremely weak for whatever reason, it could be a physical injury or it could be a death in the family or whatever. Whenever you're in a low emotional place, just a weak state, and there's a fracture in that aura, it basically shines a light out to whatever entities might be around. And the negative ones are like, they're living for moments like that. And when they see that beacon, they are on it. And I think something came in at that point, and that's why I started having the experiences.
Do you think that you had a soul contract with these entities to help you wake up through sleep paralysis?
I've actually haven't considered that, but it's possible. It's definitely entirely possible.
Yeah, because I you know, when it comes to like negative entities and all of that, when I was exploring it, because I've seen a couple with my third eye, but then my actual eyes, and a lot of people struggle with that. Obviously, it's a really disturbing experience, especially when you don't know what's happening at first. You don't know it's a negative entity. But one of the more empowering things that I've kind of come to understand is that, you know, we're all connected. We're all playing roles here in this world, even if it's otherworldly things interacting with this dimension, that in many ways, they could be teachers for us in a very unfortunate teaching situation that many would appear to, but it kind of gives you some power in understanding that although it doesn't feel good and it can be feeling quite destructive, it's also empowering to you to rise up and move beyond it.
Yeah, exactly. It's definitely empowering because you're forced to question things, and you have to get to a point where like, I need to do something about this. I have to take action. And that's where the empowerment part comes in, because once you do start seeing results and you can remove that negative being that was attached to you, and you start having positive experiences in return. You start feeling like, wow, I just did that. And you start understanding your own potential, and it just snowballs if you stay on that path. But I don't think any of us have a choice. Once we're on that path, it's kind of, you know, there's always temptations trying to pull you off. But I think, you know, the finish line is always going to be, you know, the awakening or the ascension.
Yeah. So you mentioned earlier, and I'm going to ask both of you to kind of let down your guards here on the show. I'm excited to have two men on the show, which is always nice, especially when it comes to the spiritual topics. Let's talk about the divine masculine energy. And, you know, first of all, I'd love to know, maybe Aaron, you can start off. What does it mean for you to actually be masculine? Like, what is masculinity to you?
Masculinity, I think it's just, they're two different energies, like the divine feminine, divine masculine. The masculine is the assertive, you know, action taking, protective, that kind of energy. And whereas the feminine is the more like nurturing, caretaking kind of energy, receptive, emotional. So here's the thing, like everyone needs both, because that's a very big misconception in the culture, where it's like men need to only be masculine, women need to only be feminine. It's like, that's not true. Everyone needs a balance of both. And you can be more one or the other, obviously, but if you're only all one way or only all the other, you're out of balance, right? And we live in a society right now where we're way, way, way out of balance on the masculine, and that's when it becomes toxic. You hear about toxic masculinity. Well, that's just an out of balance masculine energy, because when you don't have any of the feminine energy, suddenly you're not empathetic at all, and you're not in that loving energy at all. So then you don't care about your environment, you don't care about your fellow humans, and you can just do all these terrible things. So yeah, so true masculinity is the divine masculine, which needs to be balanced by a certain amount of feminine energy. Yeah, it's protective, and it fights for the good, and for basically it's the masculine that is in its proper role, I would say, in that. So
yeah, that's a great answer. I don't know if I can beat that.
Thank you.
No, I think that it is, we're growing up. I was taught growing up, that you're weak if you cry. We're taught to be these tough guys, and you'd never want to show your emotions. You never want to show your weakness. You always want to come off as that strong alpha male, which is what they would always promote on TV. And they want you to, all these action stars on TV. It's all the alpha male type of man. Well, at least when I was growing up. Now, obviously, that's different. Now, I don't know what they're trying to promote. Some superficial being with no consciousness now. But anyway, yeah. So I think that it's just getting away from that narrative and realizing that that's not what it is to be a man, or for that divine masculine, and not be afraid to cry. After my mom passed away, it unlocked something in me where I cry at movies and everything. It did something. I was watching a Jackie Chan movie on Saturday night, and I started crying at a Jackie Chan movie. But it just, it's okay to figure out whatever it is you need to do in your life to break that shell and to open that part of you up and just be vulnerable and not be afraid to ask for help. And not be afraid to ask the question just because you're afraid of what the answer might be, and to just be able to be a man, a male, and go to a funeral and not have to hold back your tears because you think it's showing weakness because you're crying in a group of people, or whatever it might be. And that's something that I don't know if it's something I've been working on, but it's just something I finally just let go, and then just, if I have to cry or if anything, and I keep using the example cry because I guess that was the big one for me. I spent the first half of my life wondering if I even had a heart. Like I wouldn't, when somebody passed away, I wouldn't cry. I was so programmed not to, that it wasn't even affecting me emotionally. Mm-hmm. So I got to a point where I could finally let all that go. And once you let one go, all the others go with it.
What are your thoughts on, because, I think right now we're starting to see a massive rise in the divine masculine energy in general. That's obviously includes women as well. Like you said, Aaron, like we have both energies within us. But the divine, or I should say the masculine energy in general, has been really oppressed and suppressed through the feminist movement that started. I'm not talking about first wave back in the early 1900s. I'm talking about like CIA feminism.
Yeah.
That, Gloria Steinem coming in and all of that. And how has it affected you just as men in today's world, like where it's all gone? Because I feel like what's happened is that sort of third wave feminism, instead of trying to have men get in touch with their feelings, that they were trying to turn men into women and women into men. How has that affected you guys just in, one, how you can interact with women, dating, just the general stuff, but then also how you're exploring your own self through your own masculinity?
Well, I know personally, I've noticed that it's gone from being able to be. I'm a social person. I had to, so I was always talking to people in public or whatever, and I was comfortable doing it. Now it's gotten to a point where feel like I'm always walking on eggshells. You're afraid to say hi to somebody or even engage in a conversation with a woman or somebody at the grocery store, or not that I'm trying to engage, but even just like, even that and their children, like you can't even like say, oh, hi, you have a cute kid. These people give you this evil eye. They like look at you like you're some pedophile or something.
You're dangerous.
Yeah.
Or something. Yeah.
So it's just forced me to just kind of not say anything and just be somebody I'm not. And then I think that just has a ripple effect, and that's what's happening to everybody. People are just kind of playing into this narrative. They're just playing their part, knowing, it's almost like the political correctness. Like you can't do it because it's just not what's right anymore. And it's just been walking on eggshells is the best way to describe it.
That's like one of the worst energies to feel, because you're almost in a state of imprisonment.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. Believe me.
Yeah.
But it's nothing that, like, what do? You can go out there and just get shunned by society, by trying to be yourself or just, talk to strangers, or I don't know, it's kind of like a fight or flight situation. And I know that's a worst mentality, but whenever you're just, I don't know, sometimes it's easier just to not engage anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, right now, everyone's so reactive to anything. And you guys are both white males, which is like the worst combination right now.
Yeah.
Yep.
So unfortunate. It's really unfortunate that people have allowed this sort of perception and mind infiltration to take root right now. It's really sad to see, but I mean, I guess it's all part of the awakening process. Like we have to go from one end of the extremes to the other. Like, Aaron, how has it been for you?
Yeah, I mean, I can second everything Tyler just said. And yeah, it really just comes down to, because when you're out in public, like I've noticed especially a lot of women they kind of have their guard up all the time, and they won't like look me in the eye, or they won't,
Exactly.
Like
that's
at my work, like I'll be like ringing them out, and they're just like looking away the whole time. Won't.
Yeah,
they have this big, massive guard up. Yeah.
I have to interrupt you just for a second, just because that is so true. When I do try and make eye contact or say hi to a female, that's exactly what happens. They don't even acknowledge or look you in the eye. So it's just like,
it's a defense mechanism, but it's all societal programming, like you said. And this is what it comes down to. It's like, because society, it's trying to program you in a way that's destructive to us, but that benefits the destructive society that we live in. The cabal run world that we currently live in, unfortunately. And there's all these traps and programs that we can easily, we're taught to fall into. And until you break out of that and like start living in tune with your own soul and with yourself and like your own values, like start forming your own values, right? And then living from there, you're gonna get caught in all these programs, and it's just your life is gonna be stuck in that basically, and it's not gonna be good. What I've noticed is when I actually get talking with people, new people, and then the guard comes down, and then it's like, oh, you're a person, and I feel comfortable talking to you, and then they start smiling, right? And that energy, that like comfortable energy, like gets there. So, and it's funny because I'll see a lot of times I'll literally see this like wall when I first come in contact with somebody, and as soon as like we start talking, it's like the wall comes down. They're like, oh, okay, I'm safe, like and it's like, it's so sad that like so many people have these like walls and these defense mechanisms that we're programmed have. And then like with guys, you know, it's they have it too, or they'll have it the opposite, where they'll feel like they have to like dominate the conversation, and they have to it's like the opposite of that.
Definitely, that wall is very apparent more and more nowadays.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's apparent to me, like just even for me as a woman dating, I'm like, what happened to the men out there? You know, like,
yeah, or it's the opposite, where we're being programmed to be like these beta males or whatever, where you're just this emasculated guy that you can't fend for yourself or protect anyone or stand up for yourself.
I can tell that guys are really more timid. They're like afraid to say the wrong thing.
Timid,
they're afraid to offend you. And women too, I find, are just, there's like a sense of, and I mean, it's likely not the women who are watching this podcast right now, but you know, like in general, anyone who's kind of bought into this, you know, toxic masculinity or anything like that, and that white man is like the evil of the world, that it's almost like the woman who believes in that has become so entitled to the point where she doesn't even feel like she needs to do anything anymore. You know, it's like there's no effort, there's no desire. And I've talked to, like, even just say I went on a date with a guy, and he was like saying to me that he just feels like he has to carry the entire conversation, like you were saying, you know, because just there's no effort.
Yeah. I noticed that in some girls I've known since high school. I'm still friends with them on Instagram, and Instagram is horrible, by the way. It promotes such a superficial, narcissistic lifestyle, and you get recommendations for all of these fake people. And that's what is coming up, that's trending and recommended on everybody's page. It's on the main page, not, you know. And it's just, I noticed like Instagram stories and stuff, and there's a sense of entitlement that some of these girls have obtained, that if they could step back and see what they're posting, and it has to not just to do with Instagram, but the music that they listen to and promote, and it's all part of the programming. And it's not necessarily their fault, because it's just the society that we're in the middle of. We're stuck in the middle of it, you know.
What are your, okay, let's talk about this. When it comes to masculinity, femininity, and spirituality, we're talking about, like, we're all trying to, you know, activate more 5D living. What to you is the ultimate 5D relationship of, for this sake, since, you know, like you're both straight, like man and woman, like what would be the ultimate like 5D relationship? Like, what do you see in the harmony of like the interaction between two people?
Oh man, you're really pushing the limits here.
Well, Jeff's going to put you in the hot seat.
Yep, you weren't lying.
Well, I can say one. So, you know, it's clearly, whenever somebody has gone through some level of awakening and understand things the way you do, dating becomes entirely different in itself. Because when you have an understanding of life, like old me, I was looking for girls. I was looking for my type when I didn't even know who I was. Right. So
you just nailed it.
Yeah.
Right
So
there.
now, and what happens? What happens? You just run into dead end relationship after dead end relationship. But now that, you know, we've gone through this and we start understanding how things work and the way the universe works and reincarnation and life and who we are, and the whole 9 yards, you know who you are now, and you know what to look for. And it's not even like you have to look anymore, because you're feeling now instead of looking. So you can be drawn to that person, and it's an entirely different ballgame, and it's beautiful. And I don't think that it's anything that you can script as far as how a 5D relationship is supposed to be. I just think you'll just know that it's right. You'll just know that you'll have that feeling.
You just connect on a soul level.
Yeah.
The best way I can describe it. If I don't connect with somebody on that level, like in a romantic way, you know, I just know, you know, and it's like, cause yeah, like the programming that we, you know, we get programmed with, it's like, okay, you need to get married and you need to find a mate. And then you just start looking for, if you don't, like Tyler said, if you don't know who you are, you're never going to find somebody that's going to truly satisfy you. And same for the other person. It's like, okay, well, this person's attractive and we kind of have some of the same interests. And then so many relationships, that's the extent. That's like the depth of it. It's like, we're both sexually attracted to each other and we kind of get along.
And we both like the same sports team.
Yeah. But it's like, that's not a real connection. It's like, it's got to be deeper than that.
But
you got to like really.
But we have grown up thinking that, you know, because it's just that.
But then you date somebody for a while and you're like, well, now it's time to get married just because that's what we're supposed to do. And instead of like really sitting down and be like, is this really somebody I can spend the rest of my life with? And like, I really connect on that level.
Yeah.
And then you wonder why people get divorced, you know, all the time, you know, and relationships.
Yeah. It's like, and well, Tyler, you said a really, really important thing there earlier, that for you, it's not about looking anymore. It's about feeling the connection and not like, you know, 3D is it's based off the surface. It's based off what everyone else perceives or sees and how it's going to appear to everyone else, because we're so concerned with what other people are thinking. But like 5D is all about the heart portal opening up. It's the heart connection. And you absolutely need to feel that.
Yeah.
You absolutely do.
But I've also let that, you know, because that's how I grew up, or that's how I was. I would work all week just so I can meet up with my buddies on the weekend and go to the bar and meet girls. I was in that party lifestyle. So I was like programmed to view girls that way. So whenever I kind of got out of that now, it almost works against me now, because I don't look at them the same way. So, but when I do see an attractive girl, it's almost like I don't even give her a chance sometimes, because I just immediately think, well, she's a bartender. She's attractive. There must be nothing to her. And I was proven wrong just recently by getting to know somebody. I'm like, wow, this is not at all how she appeared, but I had that old programming still in effect. And so it's just something you always have to be aware of too. And it's just, once you take the time to get to know the person, but I don't know where I was going with that, but you get the point.
There's a good quote that this reminds me of too, is like, you can only meet somebody as deep as you've met yourself. Yeah. And I don't remember who said that, but it's
so true.
Yeah, it's me. Yeah. No, but yeah, that statement right there is that's it. You can only meet somebody as deep as you've met yourself. So,
and you can't expect somebody else to love you if you don't love yourself.
And also that,
which I see a lot of, actually. So many people are externally looking for something to fill that void in their life, but they're not putting out any energy that's going to attract somebody, because they're not in love with themselves and they're living in that lack.
And when you're living in lack and you're not a complete whole being, what are you doing? You're going out looking for somebody to complete you. So you're trying to take energy from somebody. And that's what so many relationships, there are two people trying to take from each other instead of both giving to each other, right? Which is what a relationship is supposed to be. When you have two people that are whole and complete beings that fall in love with each other, they both want to give to each other, right? So that's a beautiful relationship that's going to last. That's amazing. And when you have when it's the opposite of that, when you have two people that are like, I'm taking from you and you owe me, you know, it's like you get in this like entitled mindset of like,
I did this for you, so you have to do this.
Yeah, like you're not giving me enough. And then what happens is that you both end up resenting each other, and then the relationship ends, or it doesn't, and then you're both miserable.
Well, honestly, it reminds me of something Joe Rogan said on the old podcast. He said, if you're not in a relationship to where you both are enhancing each other's lives every single day, if you're not both enhancing each other, then what are you doing? Because that's what it needs to be about.
And why are you together?
Yeah, exactly. And that's such a simple way to stop and just look at your relationship. Whoever's listening to this, is my partner, is my spouse enhancing my life, and am I enhancing their life? Are we helping each other out here? Or what is your relationship like? And
Yeah. Are we adding versus like what you were saying before, like taking away, like that taking energy versus bringing more in, like as in a sense of abundance? And you're right. Like I'm a firm believer of that, in the sense that if you're willing to be deceived by yourself, you're going to be deceived by your partner, and I don't mean that you're going to meet someone who's purposely trying to deceive you, but you're not going to see the things that you should have seen when meeting them because you're not willing to look at them within yourself.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And then you get trapped into one of those kind of, I guess some people call them karmic relationships, whatever it is. But relationships is a big deal, because as we're building this new relationship with ourselves, it then comes to a point where, I don't know how you guys have felt about this, but I know a lot of people on my channel have told me this. You almost feel like you're diminishing your pond of possibilities and potential mates the more you go up in vibration, awareness, all of that, because when you're kind of on the front lines of awakening, let's face it, like your options are not as this is the ego's perception. Your options are not as abundant. Okay, they don't seem as fully available to you. But I believe that obviously our goal is not to date an abundant amount of people. It's to find that one person that you really connect with. And if you're at that level and you can just meet one person who meets you at that level, vibration wise, you're going to start magnetizing to one another, like somehow divine orchestration, like you were talking before at the very beginning, like there is a divine orchestration here. Things are working in our favor. And actually, this is something really cool to kind of go into, is that I feel like the energies are so accelerated right now. We have so much galactic help that for those of us who are star seeds and all that, I feel like our star families are helping to connect people together.
Yeah.
I totally agree.
Very apparent. The more people I meet, the more conferences I go to, when I step back and look at it all, there's no way the connections I've made since I started going down this path are coincidence. There's no way, because it's just, we wouldn't be here on your podcast right now if that was the case.
Yeah. So speaking of like accelerated energies and galactic help, have you guys been experiencing any sort of new activations for yourself in your own awakening lately?
As far as like abilities, or what are you talking about?
Yeah, abilities is a good one to start with.
Well, I remember, I was telling you earlier about, like, I just randomly noticed I started having like same day premonitions that I wouldn't know it was a premonition until after it happened. And I would think about, I was like, I literally played that whole scenario out in my head this morning. And so what happens, I find myself start thinking about something and I'll play out like a scene. And I'll be like, well, that was weird. And then I'll forget about it. And then later on that day, that exact thing happens. But at the time of me playing out it in my head, I would never, still don't have the confidence to know if it's a premonition or did I just manifest it because I thought about it so hard. I don't know what's going on there, but it's something I'm noticing.
That's interesting. Have you tried tuning into the energy signature of how you're feeling in that moment?
No. No, I haven't.
You got to do that. You got to do that, Tyler. You got to tune into the energy signature, because that's how you're going to start to understand it more, right? Because as like we're all awakening, it's not like what we see, it's what we're feeling, and that energy you're going to start to recognize more and more. That's so cool.
I've noticed the synchronicity is ramping up, where like I'll be thinking about something or I'll read or watch something, and then something will happen right after that where it's the same thing, or like the numbers. I mean, that's always been off the charts, seeing like repeating numbers and stuff. But yeah, like I'll be like, wow, that's crazy. I just thought of that thing. And then there it is.
Well, you're not talking about the Facebook that's stalking us, are you?
Well, no, that's a different thing where yeah. Where you'll be thinking about something and a Facebook ad will pop up about yeah, or you'll talk about it and then it'll pop up. No, I'm not talking about that. That's a completely different thing. But no, that synchronicities have been off the scale, and I've also just been feeling more comfortable with the state of things, because with the craziness going on in the world right now, and a lot of people are getting caught up in the fear or the chaos going on, and people are like, oh my god, like what's happening. And yeah, I don't agree with a lot of things going on, and I'm absolutely opposed to a lot of it, but I don't feel the need to get so caught up in it like I used to do. Like I used to get very emotional and want to get in arguments like but then you get caught up in the negative energy, right? And then it's like a trap. So
it's what they're pushing for right now.
Yeah, exactly. That's part of the game.
They want people to do that and engage and to trigger each other.
Exactly.
They cause trigger events.
They want everyone fighting, and they want everyone, because that causes more chaos.
The events, the things that take place, like the shootings or the police brutality or whatever, it's all stuff that they know is going to trigger people.
Mm-hmm.
And once we're triggered, then we start triggering each other, and then their work is done. And then we're just all lost in the mix. They're feeding off the loosh, and we're feeding into the whole system, the whole narrative.
Mm-hmm.
And they want you to sit there and break down and dissect every little thing that's going on and argue with somebody about why this happened and why that happened. He said this, she said that. They want that.
Yeah.
Even people within the community, I hate using that word sometimes, but even truthers and people, like I see a lot of people getting caught up in that. Everybody was trying to break down every newest update, everything, and I think that it's not necessarily healthy, and it's
and
not
getting
necessary.
Super upset all the time about it, and it's like, I see what's going on. I'm following. I don't agree with it. I'm standing my ground, but at the same time, I'm not allowing myself to get caught up in that energy and get sucked into that game, right?
Yeah.
I'm gonna stay in the energy that I want to be in.
Yeah. Because it's the emotional manipulation, right?
Yeah.
Like you said, to feed the loosh so that they can, that's all it is like just get everyone's emotions riled up where they have no control over it. They're all in reaction.
Yeah.
And it's just a nice food source of energy.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And their food source is getting less and less, and it's so scarce right now that they have to do all this crazy stuff and stir up all this stuff just to these negative entities that do exist, that feed off of this, just to survive. Basically, they have to stir up so much stuff just to survive. That's why we're seeing all this craziness, and to stay in control. Like the Kiwala is desperate to stay in control, so they're just kind of flailing about right now and throwing everything.
Well, if their puppets fail to get the job done and fail to provide them with food or energy,
mm-hmm.
I'm talking about reptilian. I'm gonna go straight there. Not, I know we've had the good and bad, but if they fail to provide them with what they need, then what happens? Do they have to come do the jobs themselves? There's a threat. Everybody that's controlling us right now, there's somebody above them that they're afraid of, because they're not just doing. I mean, they are doing it out of pure evil, because that's how whatever's going on. But I still think there's somebody above them who ultimately is pulling the strings, above the elites of this planet. There's somebody, but actually I shouldn't say above, I should say below, because they're evidently underground. But
okay, so curious.
Above the hierarchy.
Curious. So we know like the draconian reptilian race is definitely doing a lot of the puppet string pulling when it comes to manipulating the elites down here and getting them to fulfill their plans and agendas for enslavement. Do you think there's another race that we don't know about that is even like that the Draconians are answering to?
I've heard different things.
Yeah.
I've heard the Archons, which I've heard are just discarnate entities that are negative entities that are above the reptilians and are controlling them. Or it's just AI, or AI is controlling them, and then they're controlling. Ultimately, I think it's AI at the top of the whatever the pyramid is there. But even with that, it's some kind of it's this negative, and consciousness is the best way I can put it. That's opposed to the creator, the divine, whatever you want to call it, God, the divine creator. It's opposed to that, and it's at war with creation. I just heard James Gilliland say that. I'm like, that's a really good way to put it. It's like they're at war with creation.
Yeah.
And
in love with destruction.
Yes. And the negative energy is what they feed off of, because they've completely disconnected themselves from source. So they're not getting like the source energy like us beings that are connected to source.
Yeah, I mean, so
they have to be parasites and feed off of us and beings with that energy, because they can't get it themselves.
And then that's why the schooling system, the education system, and everything is the way it is, because it starts off when we're young. They hijack our individuality, and they want everybody to be on the same playing field, the same, just a robot basically. They don't want people to have individual ideas.
They don't want you to be an individual.
They've hijacked
sovereign being. Yeah.
Which makes it a lot easier for them to control us.
You can't control people that are sovereign beings. Yeah, you can't control people that don't want anything the system's providing.
And people wonder why there's such a fit about these vaccines. It's not just because they might make you sick or might make you even worse, whatever it is. But it also it's just something in there that's dumbing you down. That's affecting your consciousness. That might be whatever it's doing to you. It's turning you into somebody that you aren't supposed to be, making you less of a human.
Yeah. And I think that is probably one of the biggest things that you guys were talking about earlier, is how sometimes you just need to disengage with like the trigger events, or social media is just, it's too easy to get triggered and get pulled into something that you would never get pulled in like in normal day situations. And in a way, it's how they trap us into the timeline, right? Of what they're trying to create. It's they keep us in that timeline. So it's like, for me, just having that higher awareness of when I am getting triggered, because we all do, we're human, it's like, whoa, no, I don't want to interact with this timeline anymore. This isn't the one I want to experience. Why am I experiencing this one? Like, get out of here, you guys I know are followers of Q and all of that, and we're coming up. Your episode's going to air right after Independence Day, right after that weekend. Nice. So I'm curious, are you guys enjoying the show?
Yes.
It depends. Yeah, obviously we're enjoying the show because we know
what's actually going on.
But if you don't know what's going on, that sounds very conceited.
But
if you don't understand what's taking place, things can look very negative right now, and it could look like there's no hope. But when you thankfully for Q, like they started gaining our trust in 2017, and it's been, what kind of operation has actually been able to do that and keep and steadily adding followers and growing a movement that's eventually going to turn this planet into something that's foreign to us, something that's foreign to us, because we don't know what it's like to live in an actual paradise,
Yeah. And Q is not a savior also, because I see a lot of people that don't want to jump on the Q bandwagon, for lack of a better term, saying, oh, don't follow Q. It's just, it's either a psyop from the CIA or the deep state, or, oh, you're giving all your power away to Q. And it's like, well, I'm sure there's some people doing that, but that's not what Q is. I see it more as like Q is just the alliance putting out there like what's going on basically, and kind of rallying the troops in a way, and leading the way, and getting us to come together under unifying, come together in this movement basically that's saying, hey, we're free sovereign beings. We're opposed to this cabal deep state that's trying to manipulate and control us, and we're not going to stand for it. We're gonna stand for freedom and truth.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that's what Q is to me. It's not about giving my power away. It's about empowering all of us and uniting.
Anyone who's really gone into the details of Q and taken the time to really go through the posts and, not just skim it, because if you skim it, you can come up with a whole different perception.
Exactly.
That it's always been about do the research, always giving like hints to go look for yourself, and not just believe them because they're saying it.
Yeah, Q literally is constantly telling us to think for yourself, do your own research.
Yeah.
So it's like, how can you even say that? Yeah.
Well, I found myself in a debate with somebody one time, and they were trying to debunk Q, and I wasn't taking the bait. I wasn't getting stooping to their level, and they just went off on this whole thing, and it was very evident that they had never read a Q post or have never read a Q drop. And I asked them, I said, have you ever actually read or looked at a Q drop or went and actually saw what it said? And they never even responded back. It was, via text. And so it just told me right there that people are,
or they just see the mainstream media hit pieces.
They're jumping on the mainstream narrative, that bandwagon, and they're using that as their fuel for their argument. No one's taking the time to actually stop and look into it.
Yeah, it's it's all part of it, and I'm curious. Q has in the drops been alluding to the fact that we are coming up to the end of a 10-week, part of a storyline where something pretty big is supposed to happen. Not the be all and end all or something, but something significant, and it's supposed to happen in the 10th week, which is going to be the week that this airs. What do you guys have any insight or ideas of what you think that's going to be?
I do. I think it's going to be has something to do with financial reset or Nasara.
That's what I'm thinking.
Jasara. We've talked before. It has to be legally implemented 120 days before the election. Past that point, they can't do it.
Which is July 6th.
Which also happens to be the end day and the last day, and it also happens to be when did Roswell happen? Was it July 6th, 1947? I think it was July 6th.
Was it?
I'm gonna look, but
I don't remember.
If it does, that's
interesting coincidence there.
Roswell. No, see, and then when you type in Roswell, it brings up the series.
Yeah.
Like that wasn't intended ever.
Yeah.
Kind of like Space Force. When you type in Space Force, all that comes up now is the Netflix show. Like the whole first page of Google is just that.
Yeah.
Instead of the actual Space Force.
So manipulated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's either July 5th or July 6th. I don't know. It just depends on.
Oh, interesting. So it is. Yeah. That's interesting.
Sorry to halt that. But yes, I think that I
do think it's that, because I knew that was going to be one of the biggest announcements before anything else, was the financial reset and the gold-backed currency and all that.
There's a lot around that date, and then a while back I listened to John D'Souza and Mike Farah, Michael Sala. They were talking about intel they had about the fake ET invasion for July 4th weekend. Now, why in the world would you? I know one, because it kind of lines up with the whole Independence Day narrative, that movie. If it happens that weekend, people are going to think of that movie and immediately think invasion. at the same time, it lines up perfectly with this other stuff that's supposed to be happening. So it could be a distraction from that, or to stop
it. Yeah. It's their last thing they can
which I don't,
do to stop
we this keeps coming up all the time. I don't think it's going to happen. But I don't know. I really don't know what's going to happen.
That's interesting because, like that Independence Day movie, that's how they anchor in these timelines into people's consciousness. And so people literally think, well, I've already relived this. It's true. It has to be true. I've already lived it, because your mind has no idea how to differentiate between reality and like just a thought or what they've seen in the past.
Mm-hmm. And exactly. What's interesting is Q has hinted at that scene in Independence Day whenever the president gets up and says, "Yeah, we will not go quietly into the night." The whole thing. Q is actually like quoted from that speech from that movie, which is also interesting to me.
It's very interesting. I agree with you
guys. It's almost like they're letting. I'm sorry. It's almost like they're letting the deep state know by quoting that. Like we already know your plans.
We already know your plans, and we've already. Or we got that covered. Like we're not going to allow it. I truly believe. I'm like, if they, because look at how confident. I mean, Q. There's no worry there at all, right? Like he was like, "Hey,
well, even Trump himself, he just never seems to have his feathers ruffled." Like
exactly,
cool as a cucumber.
And I just know with already what has gone on, and like if the deep state could have taken down the alliance or taken down Trump, they would have done it a long time ago.
Yeah.
In my opinion, they would have done it a long time ago.
Yeah.
So they're on a leash, right? They're not being allowed to do what they want to do. Well, so I just can't imagine they would be allowed to do that.
Trump has the confidence. It's almost just like you telling your kid no, and your kid starts arguing back, and you just know that it's totally irrelevant because you're an adult. You've been through life, but the kid has no clue that they think that's the most important thing. So it's so easy for you to stay collected because you realize they're just, lashing out. That's kind of the same thing we're seeing. Like the media and everybody are the children right now. And Trump is like the adult and he's just like, whatever, he'll get over it.
Absolutely. And it's interesting because I had a dream a couple of days ago that, I was with Trump and his Secret Service agents, and literally they were ETs. And nice. In the dream, it came through that he's completely insulated, and that any action that's taken to try to take him out will be counteracted by a force greater than that. Mm-hmm. And so there's nothing that can happen. It's always going to be counteracted with something that's greater than. So it's like, Q talks about expending ammunition all the time and how they're constantly being forced to expend more ammunition. And I say the deep state.
Yeah.
And I just really wonder, like, how low their ammunition is at this point.
Yeah.
It's pretty low.
They're
at the end of their rope, in my opinion.
They're basically sharpening sticks right now.
Yeah.
Out of ammo.
Yeah.
It's like looking for stones and pebbles.
Yeah.
Well, that's why they're trying to prolong this coronavirus, this COVID thing as long, and the lockdowns and everything else, and mail-in ballots. They're trying to, this is all they have left. They're like, once this election happens, if Trump gets another 4 years, they're like, that's completely it. They know this, right? So it's like, and I'm sure most of them even know it's already over, but even still, they're going out kicking and screaming because they're like you said, they're like spoiled children that are
it's
throwing
funny.
A fit on the way out.
And Q has said this isn't another 4-year election, which also lines up with if they do implement Nasara, means that you remove everybody and like sitting politicians or have to step down. That's part of it. So if that's the case, then Trump will be the last president if everything we've read is true.
If that's all true, yeah.
That's a very interesting point. That is a very interesting point because I've often wondered, like, okay, yeah, it's not another 4-year election, and there's a lot of different ways. Like I've also heard that there's a possibility that, pending that wasn't the case, that because he's been met with so much resistance, that there was and like false impeachment stuff, that no bearing whatsoever, completely illegal, that he would get a third term. But your thing makes more sense to me.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. It just, well, I read a thread. I can't. Tommy G, I think, is the guy on Twitter. He broke down. He's like, has Trump's entire presidency been a playlist for? I'm not playlist. Whatever word I'm looking for, has been all. The purpose of it has been to implement Nasara, basically. And he broke it down like every action he's taken goes right along with the Nasara
and then once he does that,
yeah.
he's like, my mission's complete, I'm out. Yeah. And then somebody else. Yeah, that could be.
Like, I don't know. I kind of butchered that whole thing, but you get where I'm going with it.
No, that makes a lot of sense. Either way, it doesn't matter to me, because I know it's not like once he steps down, it's going to be another deep state person, you know, because at that point they're going to be completely gone, pretty much, and taken care of. Otherwise, they wouldn't allow that to happen. So,
Gitmo's going to be pretty full.
yeah, exactly. They didn't expand Gitmo for no reason, guys. Like, they did not do that just because they wanted to.
We also have a friend who gets some pretty interesting intel sometimes, and he told us that there is another prison location up in the North Pole.
Really?
Ray, whenever he's here.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
He said there's another location for the overflow of Gitmo. It's just basically another Gitmo in the North Pole. So,
interesting.
Whether that's true or not, I don't know, but it would make sense that they would have a backup location or another location.
Do you think that's part of the reason why Trump was wanting to buy Greenland?
Maybe.
Maybe, but I've heard so many other. Definitely,
I know, the mineral content. I totally get that, but maybe, with Trump, it's never just one thing, right? It's never just one reason.
No. Well, yeah, and I know there's some domes, deep underground bases, military bases under Greenland. Well, they're all over the place.
They're all over the place.
But I think whatever is going on in that particular one needed to be protected, and I think that's why he.
I did read something about
why
that.
He purchased that. Yeah, so
that was the real reason.
Something in particular is going on there that needs to be guarded.
Okay. Final question, and this is going to be putting you guys in a real hot seat right now.
Ooh.
What are your thoughts on the new information that's come out on the Hidden King?
I don't know. I don't know either. What
are you talking about? Please elaborate.
There's apparently, the British royal family has had to step down, and there is a new king.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and this is the guy that David Rodriguez interviewed.
Mm-hmm.
He actually interviewed the king himself.
Yes.
And he basically claimed that this is a normal dude that likes to go to the bar and drink beers. It's not the typical hierarchy that you would expect. And I think that, I don't know. It's just, he's just playing a part, man. He's just playing his role. I don't know. That's my opinion.
Yeah. I saw the Hidden King documentary, that just came out recently, where he was talking about a lot of different synchronicities and prophetic things that, it definitely makes you think that there's something to what this guy's saying. But again, I'm feeling like this is where we get to flip the roles, where I feel like I'm my sleeping, maybe my sleeping sister or my sleeping mom, and I'm trying to wake them up, and this documentary is trying to tell me truth, and I'm like, whoa, there's a bit of cognitive dissonance going on here. I don't know if I can totally absorb all of this.
Yeah,
because there's some big statements.
Unfortunately, I haven't even looked into that enough to answer that.
I haven't yet either.
So. You're gonna plead the fifth. You're gonna take the easy way out.
I really don't. I can't weigh in on something that I'm not really.
No, fair enough. I'm just joking.
I've seen it on social media and stuff, but I haven't looked into it at all, any of that at all yet. So I need to do that.
Well, we have homework now.
Yeah. Too bad we have a podcast that we're supposed to be up to date and stuff.
You know what though?
Whoops.
If you can keep up on all of it, I'm impressed.
There's so much.
There's so much right now. It's
insane.
overwhelming. So I used to try and cover all the bases, but now I just kind of like see what comes to me. Like if stuff is trying to get my attention, then I'll look into that.
That's another sign though. I know we're so close to the end because in the 8+ years I've been awake to, all this stuff. I've never seen as much stuff happening as there has been in the last just like couple of years.
It's overload.
It's insane. It's never been like this.
No.
Where it's just one thing after another, and there's multiple things going on, and obviously with all the alliance and deep state stuff, it's never been this hot of a war.
It's whack-a-mole. It's literally like whack-a-mole.
Yeah. It's like I would watch the like Cabal Alliance kind of war before, and it would be like I could tell like what they were doing, but like it was never this active.
Mm-hmm.
Nowhere close. It was nowhere close
to
this much stuff going on,
I agree.
this much intel, and like it's crazy.
This many major events.
Yeah,
like
major events.
Yeah,
and like with like disclosure getting out just in the media and with like all kinds of stuff that 3 years ago I would have been like, holy crap, like this is happening. But now it's like we're almost used to it now. It's all so much of it's happening.
Kind of numb to it, It's like, another UFO video. Oh, cool. Yeah.
Like, oh yeah, Trump's son interviewed him and asked him about Roswell. Like that's cool. And it's like, no, that's huge. And Trump said there's interesting things and like hinted that he knows what's what's going on there.
Given that like there is so much going on, as we're wrapping up here, what would you guys? I'll give you each. Like Aaron, you can go first. Because there's so much going on, in your personal opinion, like in like your own journey right now, what would you say is the most important thing to be focused on with all of this stuff going on?
Yourself, to put it simply. Because like I was saying before, it's really, really easy to get caught up in the drama and get triggered and get upset and angry. And obviously we see a lot of that, especially on social media. And I'll make a post once in a while, but just kind of stating where I'm at, like, hey, I do not consent to this kind of thing, but I'm not getting caught up in that energy. So the most important thing is to stay centered, stay grounded, stay in your heart. Don't get caught up in the fear. Don't get caught up in the anger of what's happening, because honestly, what's especially what the media is putting out there, they want the fear, right? So they're trying to propagate all of that, and don't buy into it. Honestly, just turn off the media. Turn off your don't watch it at all. But just stay centered, stay grounded, stay in your heart.
Yeah.
And try to keep, you can stay up to what's going on, but only as much as it's useful. Because if you start getting too focused on it, you're going to get caught up in that, and it's going to take you over. So
yeah, exactly.
That's pretty much it.
I think you just reminded me of that meme. It's like, would you have noticed anything different this flu season if they didn't tell you about the virus?
I wouldn't have.
Aside from the mandatory guidelines, but in general, would you have noticed a difference?
But if there wasn't the whole COVID narrative, there wouldn't have been any of that.
Exactly, which just goes to your point to turn off your TV. It's like none of that stuff exists if you don't own a TV, right?
Yeah.
It was like somebody said, did anybody think to tell the Amish that there's a, it's like,
do you not feel like people were less sick?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Actually, this whole winter, I never even got sick once. I was like,
me, not once.
I was like, okay.
I felt great the whole time. So
usually when I'm running around and out everywhere, I would get colds at least, but it's funny. No, I think I second everything Aaron said, everything, except I want to add on to that is don't forget to have fun. Do not take this so seriously. because that is something I actually fell for a while back, just not even before all this happened, is I took this whole, once you realize there's a war going on, you're like, oh shit, I need to strap on my pads and get out there and, fight. But I started taking things so seriously that I kind of lost track of what I was even supposed to be doing, because I wasn't going out and doing anything else that was what I used to consider fun, because I was so focused on, this fight, and I just end up hitting a dead end. But the whole point is just don't forget to go have fun.
I can't agree with you more. You both kind of hit the nail on the head there. Like, keep your eyes on your own paper, keep focus on yourself, because literally your world is a reflection of everything that's going on in you.
Yes.
And that idea of having fun is so important. I feel like more than ever, if there's any time that I've ever seen the synchronicities ramp up, like opportunities start flowing in more, it's always when I'm focused on having fun. Or I shouldn't even say focused on having fun, just actually in the act of having fun, like letting go, not caring so much on, the things that we're being bombarded to care on. And that's when everything starts flowing beautifully.
Well, the reason I got so far away from that is because I almost felt guilty for having fun, because I was like, why do I deserve this? Because I should be over here fighting this. And I felt guilty for having fun, if that makes any sense. Right.
But
Wow.
The ironic thing is, the best way to fight or to rebel against what's happening is to have fun and like live the life you want to live. And like,
exactly. Well, I was caught up in the whole mind control program.
That's the trap. It's like, oh, all this bad stuff is happening, so I need to like constantly be fighting. And that's what I see a lot of people get caught up in. And it's like, you can stand against it, stand your ground, but don't get caught up in that, because now you're feeding into the negative energy.
Yeah.
So it's like, live your passion, do what you want to do, and have fun. Like you said, like that's the best thing you can do.
And I think, I don't know how you guys feel about this, we'll end on this, but on to that point, when you look at Trump and, it almost looks like he's enjoying like making.
Oh yeah.
It's like there's some sort of deep pleasure that you can almost pick up on that is coming through as he's playing his role and doing his thing. I don't know. Have you guys picked up on that?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
oh yeah.
If you have the clearance and everything that allegedly Trump has, then he knows the bigger picture. He knows how it's going to end. And then at that point, you would enjoy it, because you know the outcome. He's not worried.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And that confidence actually scares the shit out of the deep state.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
exactly. Absolutely. So you guys have some big stuff coming up this year. Why don't you let the audience know, where they can find you, your channel, and then also, I know you guys are doing Camp to Disclosure.
Yeah. You can find us on YouTube, primarily is for the podcast, on the Journey to Truth podcast on YouTube. We're on almost every podcasting platform, iTunes, Spotify, SoundCloud. I mean, there's a whole list of them. I don't even know anymore.
Yeah.
You can find us there. You can email us at journeytotruthpodcast@gmail.com. We have a Teespring page. You can get T-shirts. As far as Camp Disclosure, we will be there with an Experiencers Lounge, is what we're calling it. Doing some really cool stuff in August 27th through the 31st, Flat Rock, North Carolina. It's going to be awesome, just especially this year, because there's not too many opportunities where people are going to be able to get together and actually, see people that they've only seen from the waist up all year, so it's going to be really fun. And I can even send you the link, or put the link for the website in the description. And if you want to, if you feel compelled or drawn towards it, grab a ticket. It's going to be a great time.
And we're also going to be at ESETI,
yeah.
which is in like 3 weeks now. It's coming up really, man. Yeah. It's less than a month away. Yeah.
Yes, definitely.
We're not a part of the event, but we're gonna be attending.
Yeah.
The ESETI participating. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
That'll be so much fun. And you're right, because there's so few things right now going on. that I think it'll be good. I think there's going to be a little extra energy available to everyone.
Yes.
It's going to be, we're all going to feel like prisoners who just broke free or something.
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my God.
I'm free.
Yeah.
Can you guys do like a mass burning ceremony or something?
Oh, I hope we do. I hope we do.
Yeah.
We should totally do that.
Did you say a mask burning?
Mask burning.
Yeah, I say a mass burning.
No,
yeah.
not a mask.
Everybody make sure to bring your mask so we can burn it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, awesome. Well, it's so great to have you guys on. To my audience, please go check out Tyler and Aaron's podcast, Journey to Truth. They're putting out amazing content, have the amazing guests on, and you'll really enjoy their show. And of course, Camp Disclosure. Go check that out if you guys are in the North Carolina area, or you can travel there easily. Guys, thanks so much for coming on the show. It was really good to have you here.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much for having us.
Yeah, this was a blast. Thank you for putting us on the spot. By the way, I am not qualified to give relationship advice. So any of that stuff I said was based on my own experiences. It doesn't mean that
I'm qualified, though.
Look, like you got to take some cues from Aaron.
Yeah.
I'm just saying. I'm just joking.
No, man. You know what? We're all qualified. We've all been in a relationship, which means we're all qualified to be given advice. And I think that you guys brought up some really good stuff there on the relationship stuff. And, you know, like we're all trying to figure this all out together. So we got to talk about it.
Yeah, exactly.
Puzzle pieces together, one by one.
We're all in this together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And thanks for that curveball too. So anybody listening, Nicole sent me some talking points before this, and she not once did she say anything about relationships. So
I told you I was going to throw one your way.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, but I thought you meant like, you know, ETs or something that, I don't know.
ET funny. Relationships.
Yeah. Don't worry. I did the same thing to David on Above Duality. So
nice.
That's funny.
Well, it's so good to have you guys here. Thanks again to the audience for tuning in. I love you guys so much. I'll be back with you next week, and enjoy these new times of liberty and freedoms coming our way. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you all for joining our show. We appreciate you tuning in and supporting us. If any of you have any questions you would like answered on the show, or any guests that you would like to hear on our show, please email that information to us at info@enlightenup.us, or send us a voice message using the Anchor app. There's a super cool feature on there that allows you to send us a message or ask us a question with a touch of a button right from the app. And please continue to support us by following us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. And if you haven't checked out Nicole's channel on YouTube yet, head on over there for some more insight from her, or you can visit her website, inflexibleme.com, where you can book a personal coaching session or a tarot reading, watch some of her most informative videos, or you can sign up for her newsletter. And if you're interested in some light language healing, head to my YouTube channel, lisaloveslove.com, or send me an email to lisa@lisaloveslove.com to inquire about your own personal reading. Thank you again for joining us and supporting us, and we'll be back with you all next week.